Hey guys, and welcome to another edition of Prohire TruckTVe, a channel where we try and look at things that are in the real world, not just fresh out of the box. And we're lucky enough today to look at the Mercedes EQE saloon, which has been out for a while now, but actually want to try and get a flavour for miles per kilowatt hour, what they feel like after you've been driving it, what it actually looks like, and how they're standing up to the test of time. Of course, when you start looking at some of the Teslas and things like that, when people said about quality of build and so forth and so on, and how well they last in a real world, same principle applies to all of the EVs that we operate, and just see how well they do stand up to the rigours of using them every day. No difference to this car. This is the Mercedes EQE 300 saloon, and we're going to look around it and see where your entry level comes in this product. Now, of course, you know, when we say entry level, we're still talking about eye-watering numbers for an electric car, and of course this car is, you know, north of £75,000 to get you on the road to your journey. And is that money well spent? Well, of course it's for others to judge. This is a good car, and make no bones about it, but it would need to be, really. And in the market where electric cars are taking somewhat of a bashing across a lot of different areas, these new models and new ranges are really going to have to stand out amongst the crowd when there is a big rush from every manufacturer to put electric vehicles on the ground, from small cars, from your base level MG right the way through to your very high-end cars where Bentley were bringing something out in 2025, and they come from 20 to 350,000 quid across a car that actually does almost the same job. Now, I think for me, and more importantly, it's how this structure comes into the Mercedes today. And of course, we're looking forward to the new Mercedes Sprinter coming out in 2025, which all of these things will be linked together. But let's have a look at the car we've come to look at today. Now, in fairness to the car, it's well set up, and of course those that have seen the EQC, I mean, this kind of structure and the bonnet layout is pretty similar. But in a car that actually is a lot of money, I'd like to see maybe something slightly better with the wheels. This is interesting as well, where this is how you fill your water bottle. I mean, who knew? I mean, obviously trying to avoid you having to take the bonnet up and down should you require it, but we'll look at that later. Of course, like a lot of these modern cars now, as you walk up, the handles come out, and you know, why wouldn't it be? Every car's been doing that at this level for quite some time now, and it's actually quite used to. When you get used to it, it's actually quite good. But looking around it as well, you know, it's a very, very nice car, and why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? You know, this is, for me, one of Mercedes where they're going to try and take on Tesla in their own backyard. Well, why not? Why not? Absolutely, why not? You know, I guess the bit for me, when you start looking at 89 kilowatt hour battery, this vehicle should do 4 miles to the kilowatt hour, so giving you a range of WLTP, of course, is 300, 320, 330. This car should do 330, 340 miles. When you look on the websites and people talking about this stuff, it got a range from anywhere between 215 and 420 miles. It's bonkers. A car like this, driven well, 4 miles to the kilowatt hour, 89 kilowatts of of battery, 80 kilowatts, 320 miles on a car like this, 340 miles is kind of where you should be real world, and that's using it every day, a combination of motorway and urban driving. Of course, as long as you keep your motorway driving to a sensible level, then your power will stay in the vehicle. As soon as you start driving these cars hard, range is be almost irrelevant. 5% to 80% in about 35 minutes, capable of onboarding at 170 kilowatts DC. You know, very sensible, very practical. Let's have a look inside, because this is where Mercedes start to come into their own, I think, with some of the things that they offer. So, handles open as you walk up to the car, and we get into it. And of course, as always, Mercedes EQ, welcome as you get in. And let's have a look at some of the features in this car. And of course, this ambient lighting that you see in some of these new Mercedes now is spectacular. We love the ambient lighting, plenty of storage, and of course the incumbent cup holders. You know, they are a really well appointed car. Decent size of storage there. and it's a really, really nice Mercedes. Let's push the button and see what powers up, and we'll go for, I mean, I've been very fortunate that Mr. Powell from head of fleet for Speedy has allowed us to use his amazing car today to showcase a car that's being used for a job every day. Sat nav, well appointed. You know, if you look at some of the things in these vehicles, there is so many things now where it's becoming a touchscreen. I'm not going to say touchscreen nightmare, but certainly in the car I drive, everything's run through a touchscreen, and it can become quite a challenge. Instantly into it, steering is super light, great setup on these cars as always, and there's so many things to look at from a base level when you look at these cars, and when you start to get into the level of tech behind this, it just is. It's eye-watering when you think about it, but the amount of things they actually put into these cars today. But I suppose from my perspective, you know, we've got all the bits and pieces here, from your sat nav right the way through to power, to range, and all the things that we. Let's look at our friend EQ. Right, so there we go, EQ. This car is 342 miles of range, it says. With 92% of charge. So again, not too dissimilar to the conversations we were having. And if we look at fuel consumption, as it will be, this is from the start at the moment today, giving a 297.9 watt hours per mile, which equates to about 3.4 miles to the kilowatt hour. That's urban driving. That's over the last 90 minutes. What we got over we've got over 3 hours, 2.98. So roughly in that area, around about the 3.4, 3.5. Now, what I found with my car, and when I've been doing about 80,000 miles in it now, it's got better as it's gone further on, and certainly to be able to get 3.5 out of this as the car becomes more used to the driver and vice versa, then pulling 4 out of this shouldn't be a terrible thing. But cars like this, bear in mind, do significant motorway mileage as well, so that's always going to be the hard place to navigate. So basic. It's a lovely Mercedes, which has all the standard accoutrements that you would find inside a car like that. And I've only just touched the sunroof and it opened on me. I didn't actually mean to open the sunroof, and I have no idea how to close it, so who knew? What happened here is, I don't know. Yes, it's closing on its own. Well done. Thank you, sunroof. I'm very pleased to see that, because if it didn't, I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do with it whatsoever. And I suppose to a certain degree, that's the fantastic thing about some of these new vehicles. It's been able to play with the buttons and just get something fantastic out of it. One of the things that you'll see, hopefully, if we find somewhere that's quite dark, is the ambient lighting. It is just fantastic in these cars. Inside here, your seats back and forth. It's got all of the normal stuff that you would find inside the Sierra and E-Class, which he's taking its model from. Why don't we take it for a run and just see what this thing actually drives like. Put it in drive and actually off we go. I think hopefully you'll be able to see the ambient lighting, which is actually fantastic. I think it's great. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Now this car actually has got a 0 to 60 of about 7 seconds, which is it's not shabby at all, and feels really quick. It's very responsive, as you'd expect from any Mercedes. But more importantly, I think there's very few electric cars that I've driven, or commercial vehicles that I've driven, that are not extremely responsive, and this is by, you know, certainly no means one of those that is not. So it's absolutely just there on the button straight away, and it's right up there with the speed that you need to go to. Of course, it's got, as you'd expect, cruise and everything else that goes with it. I think driving style for electric cars, though, these cars actually, when you get used to the euphoria of how quick they actually go, and you know, when you start looking at the AMG models that are coming out next year, the EQE SUV have already started to look at the AMG models. They're talking about an AMG 53 with a 100 kilo power pack that's capable of doing 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. You know, I'm not sure that's required knocking around the streets of Manchester, in fairness. And you know, when you consider that this car is capable of that kind of speed, you know, why would you need to go any faster than 7 seconds? Especially when you're trying to conserve power, because that's the key with electric vehicles, is driving them the best you can to get the most out of your fuel consumption. Because one of our biggest pieces of work we do from a commercial vehicle point of view is trying to get the best miles per kilowatt hour, and you're not going to do that by travelling around at 0 to 60 at 4 seconds. This is direct power, it's instant and incredibly quick, but also incredibly quiet. You know, no noise whatsoever, and as we've come to be used to in these electric vehicles now, super quiet, super comfortable. The seats are fabulous. The seats are absolutely unbelievable. Really great. And of course, full carbon fibre effect. It just feels, you feel snug in the car, you feel comfortable, and you feel you're in control of something which is, you know, pretty special. Lovely thing. So Mercedes came late to the party, I think, when it came to EV, especially on the commercial vehicle side. The early commercial vehicles were, you know, dire, I suppose is the word I'm going to use. This is the platform you're going to start seeing some of the later commercial vehicles coming out now. We've done some work on the Vito, the new Sprinter out towards the middle or back end of next year. You know, if it's anything like this, it's going to be a very sensible piece of equipment. However, the thing I've got to add with it, if you've got a car with if you're entry level at 75,000 and you're topping out north of 100,000, then the commercial vehicles are going to have to be sensible when you start looking at some of the other products that are out there. Concerning for me, or what I'm interested in really, is how you can, if a Sprinter is 50-ish, a panel van, okay, there's more seats in this and all the other bits and pieces, but then it becomes an interesting conversation how it can be double the price of a commercial vehicle. It's a lovely thing, you know, and there'll be a lot of conversations about that's where the worth is. Of course there is, but I'm talking about the technology, the battery packs, the engineering, all of those things that are going to be sitting in that platform are going to sit right across both platforms in the same way. So the seats, will they be as plush? I doubt it, but there'll still be seats. You know, there'll be less of them, but there'll be more van, and there's less sunroofs, of course, and all the other good things. But it's a consciousness always that I take to when you start talking about EV today, the quality of the EV and how long and how much we're going to get from the long-term life of these electric vehicles. And of course, I'm super convinced that electric vehicles will last the lifetime of any formatted diesel vehicle. And we've got a video coming up in a couple of weeks which is going to show one of our cars, which before it just ends, with 100,000 miles on it. We'll be able to show you the history of the vehicle for its 4 years, and we'll be able to show you the quality and the certification of the battery life that's left in it, and it's one to watch. That's why I urge those people who are really concerned about the long life of electric vehicles, this is one to watch. Won't tell you what it says, but we'll certainly, I think it's certainly worth a good look. But let's back to the day, and this, you know, in all the electric cars that I've driven, and I've driven literally hundreds over the past, you know, 5 or 6 years, and this is a lovely thing to drive. You know, it's really quiet, it's really positive. The steering is great. It's everything you'd expect from Mercedes. And you know, I have an EQC, which this is not unreminiscent of, but certainly you can tell that there's a lot more modern tech gone into this, and we're only a few years into it. But I'm going to take this for a run, and we'll see how we get on. Hey guys, just a quick one really I wanted to show you, which is probably one of my biggest bugbears with both Mercedes that I have at home and the one I'm driving today, is, you know, in the UK it can be inclement weather quite a lot, and whether it's cold or warm or rainy as it is today in the northwest of England, this is my biggest bugbear. So at the moment we're showing a range. We started off with a range of 341 or whatever it was, and we've come out, we're driving around and having a fine old time. The range is holding up, 331. We've come about 6-7 miles. So we're actually doing more miles than we are using fuel or electricity, if you will. If I turn the blowers on or the aircon, we go from 331. Sorry, I'll tell you if I can understand, but just check. We go from, I'll just have a look, 338, apologies, put the blowers on because the windows are misting up, and we dropped to 315. And I think that for me is, it doesn't happen with most modern cars now. There is I'm not saying that we don't see the power being used or not being used, but 8-10% of your fuel being used in just by operating your air conditioning within a vehicle. And yes, we know, of course, on diesel vehicles, when you put your aircon on, there is a fluctuation, but I've yet to see it in most of the other cars that we operate with. It's either spread out, it's managed better, but instantly you have this drop of power, and I actually think that's pretty poor. Now, of course, the interesting bit for me is I can put everything on and it doesn't move from 315. So heated rear windows, heated side windows, heated front windows, everything's on, the lights on, and it still drops to the same level. It's not like it goes anymore, but the minute you put blower on once, it's just your fuel or your power drops right down. I think Mercedes could do better with that, because it adds to that anxiety of, well, am I really going to get 340 miles of range or 320 miles of range? Because the minute you come away from the charger, 320 miles of range, and actually put the blower on, and instantly I lose 30 miles. And it's kind of, you'd like to think that if you were structuring your range, you'd range it on how it's been driven with things on in the car, as opposed to, well, if you drive it without the aircon, the lights, the wipers and the heating on, or the cooling on, you'll get 340. But in real world, when you have to use those things, you instantly lose up to 10% of your range. And I think that's where Mercedes have that wrong. Lots of conversations about what real world is when it comes to range. The real world for me when it comes to range is most modern cars are capable, driven well, of doing 4 miles to the kilowatt hour. Of course, you'll see videos where there's people who will, oh, I've got 6 and I've got this and I've got that. I've got 5 and I've got 6, but only for a very short period of time. I'm running on 80,000 miles at around 3.5 all the way right through winter and summer. So overall, the average has been in that arena. But absolutely, if you can start to aim towards that 4 miles to the kilowatt hour, this got nearly 90 kilowatts of power. That's what your aim is. Whether you get there or how much you get out of that is how you've been driven. But to turn on things in the car that come with the car, and then you lose 8 to 10% of your range, I think it's a bit of a con, to be fair, Mercedes, and you should think about that. Anyway, I shall carry on after that moan. So we're back here in Haydock, and again I want to thank Aaron Powell, who's head of fleet for Speedy Services, to let me use his car today, because I think one of the great things about what we're able to do is talk to people who have got the opportunity to run these cars and see how they're getting on with them. Aaron loves his car. What's not to love? It's a nice thing. And of course, one of the things that we'd like to really show is as we always do, what's in the boot, what we charge, bits and pieces like that, just to finalise where we are with a car which actually stands out on its own. It's got its own look. It is a modern car. It's fully electric. Zero emission at the pipe. What was not to love? So we've got your charging, little light there in case it's dark, and it's got the full AC/DC charging capabilities. And of course, as you'd expect with a car like this, it's got a decent boot, fully powered as well, which is, what can I say, which is what we always want. Really good sized boot, exactly reminiscent of you find in your E-Class. From a diesel perspective, it's a great car. It's going to stand the test of time, and of course most of the Mercedes do. I think, if like anything, it's going to stand out now, and all these electric cars have got to stand out for their own quality. And you look around a car park like this today, there are a number of electric cars here, all hooked up You know, Speedy Services, one of the greenest companies in the UK, if not in the world. You know, the amount of effort that Aaron and his team put into their fleet program across all of their vehicles, not just cars, but their massive commercial vehicle fleet. That every conversation we have is around green technology, how can we save CO2, where are we going to be next? And there are very few companies that are as in that zone as Speedy Services. And again, you know, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about an iconic car, I believe it's going to be, and how it moves on from there over the next period. Please subscribe if you can, like if you can. Of course, interesting one for us, Tesla coming up next, Tesla S, 100,000 miles. Just see how that car stood up to the test of time with all the critics that we've had over the past few years in the quality and how it's been tested, and we can share that with you very soon. Take care. See you guys.